Hi, this is Jill Riley, and I am the Communications Assistant for the Pacific Northwest Conference. And today we have Peter Song with us. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Jill.
Peter is our conference coach, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. Peter wears a couple of hats, and so we're looking forward to hearing about the work that he's doing. But first of all, tell us a little bit about your family.
I'm in that sort of liminal space right now. Things are in flux. The house is turned inside out a little bit as kids are moving in and out of school. But I have two that are going to be in college this fall, and I have one in high school, one in middle school, and a giant 80-pound dog. So our house
And
is fun.
an 80-pound dog, what do you have?
He's an Irish doodle. He's an Irish setter, which is a crazy breed I found out after the fact, and the poodle mix. But he's sweet. But he's my only boy energy in the house. I appreciate it.
It's much needed. And your wife?
She's a school teacher in Bellevue. Her name is Susie.
So, Peter, tell us a little bit as conference coach, what do you do for the Pac Northwest?
Several years ago, I transitioned from being a church planter and pastor to being an executive coach and being a psychologist. So I have my doctoral degree in organizational and performance psychology. So I lean heavy into that and do coaching type stuff for pastors and teams and leadership teams and that sort of thing. Find myself to be most helpful when a church or leadership are in trouble or transition,
Okay.
and come in and do assessments, provide coaching, provide a process, engage a process to help them solve for X, help them identify what X is, and get them moving sort of into the future.
Right. So, is it about spiritual health or organizational health, emotional health, or all of the above?
I was just on a coaching call this morning, and we were commenting on how it's really hard once you really get into the uh, deeper layers of what's going on to see where psychology ends and where theology begins, or where
Yes.
theology and psychology begins. So I think it's strategy, I think it's psychology, it's theology, it's society, it's systems, it's problem solving, it's decision making, it's leadership, followership, it's all of it.
That's excellent. Where did your passion for this kind of ministry come from?
My career has always been starting churches. So I helped start six different churches. And then I started working for the denomination and the conference. But I had been interested in psychology, and I've been a student of systems theory for over 20 years. I work part time as a contractor for the Start and Strengthen department. And there I help with the training. I do the training orientations, which are 3-day events. I also facilitate their training cohorts, which run in 6-month segments. And I also am the director of assessment, which means that I do pre-assessments. I go to different planters or aspiring planters and do assessments. And I also direct assessment center, which happens 2 or 3 times a year.
Hmm. What do you think is the most challenging part of assessing somebody for future ministry and finding their role within the larger body of the church?
Probably the simplest way for me to explain that is to talk about the baker versus the bakery. So I would say most people aspire to plant churches because they're either really good at baking bread, and or their friends have told them you need to open a bakery because your bread is so good it should be shared. And they feel this sort of inner call to bake bread. If you've opened a bakery, you know that baking bread and running a bakery or getting a bakery to launch are two completely different endeavors altogether.
Mm,
And so baking bread is a craft and you focus on that task. But if you're opening a bakery, you're suddenly a generalist that has to deal with machines and deal with codes and deal with employees and deal with the shop itself and the business itself. And you may never even get to bake the bread you used to love baking. And
Yeah,
so that jump is huge. And I would say that successful church planters, and I put successful in quotes, um, means that you understand bread, but you also understand how to launch and run a bakery.
excellent. That's a great illustration. I appreciate that. Hey, so you are an author published now, and your book is available. What's the name of the book? Tell us a little bit about it.
It's called The Post Church Church, and the subtitle is The Shift from Program and Place to People and Practice. And this is based on 2 to 3 years of research on sort of the post-pandemic, post-Floyd, post-Trump, post-Christian cultural shifts in our nation, and the ways that those shifts are impacting the church, because of course the church resides in the culture. And so some fundamental things have changed. The paradigm has shifted.
Mm,
And so the church is sort of waking up to that still, in my opinion. And so I took my research and wrote a book about it.
that's excellent. I'm excited for you. So, who is, besides yourself, your favorite author?
There's a book called Platonic
Hmm.
by uh, Marissa something Cohen or something like that. But she wrote a book called Platonic about relationships and friendships in general. And she quotes a lot of research and a lot of authors that I would say 95% of the studies that she quoted and authors she quoted, I was familiar with. And so I kind of felt like she summarized a lot of my thinking. And so I appreciated that book called Platonic. So I'll name
That's
her as my favorite du jour.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, one last question. What do you think is the one thing that is the most important for a pastor's mental, spiritual, and emotional health?
If I had to pick one thing, I would say probably self definition,
Mm,
uh, maintaining our sense of self, which encompasses things like self leadership and our own values and our own agency, and very important self regulation. All of those things are in my brain when I say self definition. And so maintaining that self definition under in the pressure of the culture and relationships and our job demands, I think probably will keep us on the steady for longer than if we lose it.
that's great. Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time. You're a blessing to the conference and to the covenant, and I just appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jill. Good to see you again, and
You
take good care.